Hello and welcome to the 5 Yard Dynasty podcast. Hope you're all doing well this evening. Liam, how you doing?
Well, good, thank you, Rich. How's things with you?
Yeah, good. It was a good fantasy week. I think the less said about the actual NFL from my perspective, probably the better. but yeah, swiftly moving on. What about yourself?
All good. Unfortunately, didn't get to catch all of the Packers game on Sunday. I had another wedding. It's what happens when you have friends that aren't in the NFL world. You have weddings on a Sunday. So
It's just not on.
it's not.
It's so strange, isn't it? 2 years ago, we'd have been saying a Sunday wedding. How crazy is that? But so far this year, I've been to a Thursday wedding, a Monday wedding, and a Tuesday wedding. Which, yeah, I guess that's
get them in.
That's what happens when you can't have a wedding for 2 years, isn't it? Everyone gets pushed in. But before we dive into everything, keen to remind you that support for the 5 Yard Dynasty podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who are the best in below the waist men's grooming. We still have an exclusive offer for you, so 20% off and free worldwide shipping when you use the code 5Yard. It's very simple, guys. We talk about this a lot. We've talked about it now for a few months. It is a fantastic product. If you're not using it, I can guarantee you are missing out. It is a very impressive bit of kit. So Liam, so you had a little sip of something there. It looked a little bit pinky. Have we gone back to the pink cocktails? Or have we got cocktail of the week?
No, so this week I wanted to do pina colada, but I'm not a big fan of them because it's got coconut in, and I'm not a fan of coconut. So pineapple juice, coconut cream, and rum. That's all you need, and it should taste nice. I don't really know. I've never made one, but the pink drink you're looking at is Vimto Remix. It's some good stuff.
What's a Vimto Remix?
Think of Vimto, and then it's just like a different taste of Vimto. It's a bit more fruity. It's squash. It's squash.
Okay, fine. I thought it was some. I thought it was some strange knockoff of a cheeky Vimto.
No, it's not a cheeky Vimto. I've had too many of those.
I was going to say I thought you were going to say you were too young to know what cheeky Vimto was, but yeah, that was my early years at university. There were plenty of cheeky Vimtos.
I have a friend that's a big fan of port, so I know too well what they are.
Yeah, I'd like to say we definitely weren't using port for it when I was at uni. There's no way on my student budget I could afford port. So let's just dive into it. Who are the highest scorers of the week?
So a couple of new names in the top threes across the position. So for those that are listening for the first time, high scorers, we use 4-point touchdown for quarterbacks and PPR scoring, no tight end premiums for every other position. So quarterbacks, we've got Tua as QB1 on the week. After all the trade rumors going around, he threw for, I believe it was 4 touchdowns, 300 plus yards or something along those lines, Rich. You had Burrow and Stafford as well. So
keen to point out Tua also had 2 horrific throws for interception as well. But yeah, there was a few competent throws in there.
I think more than a few, Rich. I think you're giving him a bit of a hard time. But yeah, at the quarterback position, you also have Burrow and Stafford. So Stafford is a name that is doing really well, and Burrow had a great week, an absolutely great week.
Yeah, it was strange, wasn't it? I expected that Bengals Ravens game to be a bit of a shootout, and it was slow to get started, but it kind of eventually turned into something pretty special, didn't it? I think Joe Burrow is on an unbelievable tear at the moment, largely buoyed by the fact that he can't keep throwing deep touchdowns to Jamar Chase. I do think there's probably a little bit of regression from that side, but look, we kind of came into the season hoping that Joe Burrow would solidify himself as an elite hot QB1 moving forward. And to me, I think he's absolutely that. I think he's kind of solidified himself in that probably 8-9 range. I'd throw him in a tier with probably Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence in that sort of mid to late QB1s. I don't know if you'd agree. But look, he's looking fantastic, and with the weapons he's got, it's hard not to bet on fancy numbers, is it?
Yeah, I had him as QB. I think it was 7 before the season, QB 7, QB 8 range. And I'm happy to keep him where he is right now. I don't see much movement within that tier at the moment for me. At the running back position, we had Kamara, we had DeAndre Swift, and Damian Harris making it into the top 3.
Yeah, nice to see Kamara back producing, wasn't it?
He had a monster first half.
Yeah, but we've, since James has come in, we've seen those targets decline, and for him to have a 10-catch game was very pleasing to see.
Definitely.
Hopefully that's a sign of things to come. I guess probably the less said about Damian Harris's opponents, the better. But I think it's an interesting one, because I think if people are just box score watching, you could easily see, potentially him as a sell high right now. I do think that Patriots offense, that offensive line is very good. It is a power running game. We see that, they're basically not trusting Mac Jones to try and win in the game, which means that Damian Harris is always going to have a decent workload. But I'm not convinced he's anything more than a kind of volume-based RB2. And that, as you all know, that's kind of scares me.
Yeah, I think the other thing you need to mention is Ramondre Stevenson, the rookie, was not a part of that backfield on Sunday. So that would have also helped Damian Harris get a lot more touches.
It was interesting, though, down the stretch, they basically took Harris off. I mean, it makes sense when you're like 40 points up. Why not? But JJ Taylor was the one that was getting the goal line work. So it could have been an even bigger game for Damian Harris if they hadn't have sat him on the bench to kind of rest him.
Or the Jets put up a bit more of a fight.
It's hard when your franchise quarterback goes off injured. I can imagine for any team, it's particularly a team that's not exactly got much about it at the moment. But when you see your quarterback go off injured, it sort of knocks you. And I think it's already a lost season for the Jets. The only thing that mattered this year was Zach Wilson producing and that offensive line coming together. And we've seen Zach Wilson now injured, Mekhi Becton now injured. It kind of feels like, okay, let's just wait. Let's just wait 4 weeks till they're both back, and then we can start reassessing how the season's going.
That was just a little dig at you. I didn't mean anything by it, but I will say that Zach Wilson didn't really do much before he went off injured. There was a bit of a Patriots lead, shall we say, before he went off anyway. I just think that was a tough game for him regardless. So moving on to the wide receiver position, we got Cooper Kupp as the wide receiver 1 again. I don't know how many weeks that is now. That's got to be probably 4 pushing 5.
It's absolutely incredible.
Then you've also got Jamar Chase in the top 3 once again. And then Mike Evans, who gave away Brady's 600th touchdown ball to a fan in the crowd, and then the fan got an absolute haul from the Bucs to get it back, or from Brady specifically, should we say. But yeah, that there were some crazy scoring games there. You also had, at the tight end position, you had CJ Uzomah go absolutely off for the Bengals. Pitts, without even a touchdown, got tight end 2 scoring there. And then Mike Gesicki also topped that top 3.
I think that's an interesting top 3 at the tight end position, because you've got CJ Uzomah, where, yes, credit to him, is very impressive, but basically half those points were on a blown coverage. I mean, Javon Holland, I don't know what he was doing. He came down to cover nobody in the middle of the field, and Xavier Howard's thinking he's got inside help, and CJ Uzomah just jogs past them both for a touchdown. It was horrific. I think the Cole Pitts, look, I'll take some flack. I'll hold my hands up. I said that the price we were paying on Cole Pitts was ridiculous. I still kind of believe that. But I think, look, he's absolutely producing. But we've seen the last 2 weeks that he's actually being used how we hoped he'd be used. He's not a tight end. The last 2 weeks, he has not been used as a tight end. And I think that hopefully Arthur Smith has finally realised what he's got in Cole Pitts and how to use him, because he's stopped, lining up so much in line. He's spending over a third of his time as an inline tight end. That's not Cole Pitts. He's basically replaced Julio Jones, which is where he's suddenly blown up for these last 2 weeks, and you've seen him running more routes as that X receiver. We've seen the Falcons utilised him, I think, 3 or 4 times as that X ISO. So you've got the 3 receivers to one side, and you've got Kyle Pitts alone on the solo. And basically what that does is that forces the defence either to go too high in order to shade a safety over Kyle Pitts, or to go pure man over Kyle Pitts. And there's not a corner in the league that can cover Kyle Pitts one-on-one, which I don't know why the Falcons haven't been using it more often, to be honest. Arthur Smith's a very smart man, and he didn't do it hardly at all in the first 3 games. So it's interesting that he's finally doing that. But the big one I'm keen to talk about is Mike Gesicki. We talked about him last week as, is this finally the breakout? We've seen consistent production. We've seen him put together a few decent weeks, and he's done it again. I think he's had 4 top 12 weeks so far this season. He's had 6 top 24 weeks. So when he's producing, what more can you want from him? He's up at my tight end 8 now, and I really think that he's very close to that Noah Fant tier. Do you think that Gesicki's someone that you're buying into, that this is the real deal, or do you think it's a case of once we start to see Will Fuller return, once we start to see the other parts of this receiving game come back, Mike Gesicki's going to disappear?
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that my biggest issue is who else do they have as wide receiver? I mean, you had Waddle get injured during the game. We've had a couple of other injuries around there. Parker has been in and out, I believe. And then you've also seen the other tight ends there get targets. It's not just Gesicki. You've also got, is it Smythe or Smith, however you say that
Smythe, yeah.
And Adam Shaheen get targets, and not just 1 or 2. You're talking over 3 for both of them last game at least. So do you think that it's just going to be the fact that there's a lack of wide receiver there, and that there's a lack of receiving target? Or
I think,
personally, for me, I think it's down to that, and all of the tight end targets will drop. Maybe the percentages between them will stick to how they are, or the share between the tight end position is set in stone. But I really struggle with Gesicki getting this amount of targets on a long span for the stretch of the season, basically.
Yeah, and I think that calling him a tight end is even more ridiculous than calling Kyle Pitts tight end. I mean, Gesicki runs 80% of his routes from out wide. Like, he's not a tight end. He's listed as tight end, but it's ridiculous. I think, look, it's interesting. If we see Preston Williams, Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle all back fully fit, yes, there's probably not going to be enough targets to go around for Mike Gesicki. As you add into that, you've got Myles Gaskin, who's looking very good as a receiving back out of the backfield. But can we sit here and say Will Fuller's going to play every week? He was much maligned. He finally proved himself that he could stay fit last year. He then got PED suspension. He's then come back this year, and now he's on IR with a broken finger. Devontae Parker, look, I loved Devontae Parker coming out of college, and I was the biggest Devontae Parker stan when he came out, and I was so excited for that 5th-year breakout. But the guy can't stay healthy. Preston Williams, we're now in 3rd year. He's come back off that ACL. Is he going to kind of stay healthy? I just think that, look, Mike Gesicki, he's producing, and good things happen for that Dolphins attack when he's targeted. I said it last week, and I'll say it again. I think that it is, he's a freak athlete. And I think that whilst we might not see these crazy high target numbers that we've seen over the last 2-3 weeks, I do think he is a plug-and-play tight end, which, when we're talking that tight end 8-9 range, give me Mike Gesicki over Dallas Goedert or Logan Thomas or Tyler Higbee or Dalton Schultz or Hunter Henry. Like, those are the guys that go in that range. And to me, Mike Gesicki is a cut above those.
I think if you can bridge the gap between Gesicki and Pitts and try and get Pitts with Gesicki coming off these great games, I think do it every day of the week. Obviously, don't pay 2 firsts on top of Gesicki for Pitts. That's a bit ridiculous. But if it's the matter of like a second on top, then why not? I think at the moment, the way I see Gesicki is sell high.
Essentially, I just think that I don't think you're ever going to sell high on a tight end that's not one of the elite ones. I think that, like you, people just don't value the position. So what are you getting for Gesicki most at the moment? A second?
That's why I said bridge the gap between him and Pitts, because if you can get Pitts, I think Pitts has got that.
I think if you could,
upside.
I love the idea. I love the idea, but I think if you can buy Kyle Pitts in any league right now, you're a braver man than I, because I wouldn't even want to go and ask what the price is, because I reckon everybody's quoting, obscene numbers after these last 2 weeks.
Probably. Maybe even then a Kelsey, maybe with him struggling a little bit more this year.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the significant news, we've got less than previous weeks, but a couple of big storylines. So first of all, Pat Mahomes went out of the game with a possible concussion. He has been cleared, but we could see some lingering effects there. Is there anything you wanted to speak on that one, Rich? Because I know that could be a big injury if it does linger.
Yeah, I know there was some rumours that he got concussed, and obviously Andy Reid came out and said that he cleared concussion protocol. I think, well, it was a really nasty-looking injury, wasn't it? His necks aren't supposed to bend that way. But if he's fully fit, look, you're firing him up. It doesn't matter how bad a couple of weeks he's having. Doesn't matter how bad a stretch that Chiefs offense is having. You're still starting every option that you've got in it. You're still starting Kelsey, you're still starting Hill, you're still starting Mahomes, and you're probably still starting Darrell Williams, and there's nothing you can do about that. I've been on record saying that I really believe this Chiefs offense is, a kind of a fire ready to just blow up and go crazy. And I still think so. Mahomes is still the absolute 101 in any Dynasty Superflex. And if you can get, perhaps a slight buy low window, I'd be going and asking the question, because I think people are seeing, what Kyler Murray's doing and the likes. And if you can pivot off Mahomes to Kyler Murray plus maybe a little bit thrown in. I'm sorry, if you can pivot from Kyler Murray to Mahomes plus a little bit, then I'm definitely doing that.
So moving on over to the Browns, Odell Beckham Jr. has a shoulder injury, could be out 1 to 4 weeks, depending on further reports. We haven't seen anything since the game, so we've got to see how that one goes. But that could be a frustrating addition to this season for Odell. Darren Waller has an ankle sprain, potentially minor, because he did get added to the injury report pretty late on. It was just before the game, I believe it was on Saturday, and then he was declared out as a game time decision. So with it being such a late addition, maybe we see him this week. But Foster Moreau, that's the one. He had a great game. I think he was tight end 6 or 7 on the week. He had a great game.
Yeah, he's been one of my favourite stashes that, to be honest, I've probably given up hopes that he'd ever turn into anything, and I think I let a few shares go once because it looked like Waller was never going anywhere. But the Waller injury is for me a little bit concerning, because when you see it come across the ticker, I think it was, what was it, ankle, wrist and hand injury as moving out. It's, it wasn't just one. Obviously, so I think the Raiders are on bye this week, aren't they? So
yes,
a slight... I always hate it when someone gets injured before a bye, because you then have to wait like a week before you get any injury news, don't you? So, yeah, no one really knows what with Darren Waller, but we're not going to have any news for another week. So it's a case of, if you've got Waller, you can't really do anything with him. You just got to sit and wait, and fingers crossed, as you said, it's nothing significant. I hope that they were just like a case of, we got bye week next week, let's not force it, give him 2 weeks to recover, and hopefully he's good to go for next week.
Yeah, so sticking with the Raiders as well, Josh Jacobs went out with a chest injury during the game, potential rib injury, but again, we haven't seen anything. And as the Raiders are on a bye week, we may not see anything for another week or so. Reports are that it could be minor, but we'll have to see what those extra reports are when they come through. Miles Sanders left the game as well with an ankle sprain, 1 to 3 weeks potentially out. What do you think there, Rich? Because I see all arrows up for Gainwell, but I don't know whether that's just my love for Gainwell right now.
I think, to be honest, the game will hype's probably going to go a bit mental this week, isn't it? I think, look, if we don't know how long Miles Sanders is out, we're hoping it's a couple of weeks. We're hoping they've said it's nothing too serious, but they've not given any clear timetable. Hopefully, it's short term and he's back soon. But I've just seen a report before he came live that apparently Jordan Howard could see significant work this week.
Jeez.
So,
that's scraping the bottom of the barrel, isn't
it? Maybe that puts some ice on your Kenny Gainwell hype. But look, I think that, to me, what I'm expecting to see out of the Eagles is I think they'll have similar usage as they had week like 2-3, wasn't it, where it was almost a 50-50 split between Sanders and Gainwell. And I think Gainwell will get the passing game usage, and I think Boston Scott will get the rushing usage. It was what you saw when Sanders went down. Gainwell's role didn't really seem to change. He was used in the passing game, he was used on third down, he was used in those hurry-up situations, and then Boston Scott was basically given all the rushing work.
I wonder whether that is what the Saints did last year when Breeze went down and they put Winston in, but Winston didn't start. It was Taysom Hill starting the following week, whether it is just they wanted to stick to the game plan that they had, and this week they might dial something else up.
Possibly
gets one or the other back more involved than what we saw this week.
Possibly. I'm just really concerned that we're going to see a three-headed monster, and you're going to see Gainwell get the receiving work. You're going to see Boston Scott get the rushing work, and then you see Jordan Howard come in for his 1-yard touchdown. And it's going to mean that none of them are fantasy relevant. All of them you're left scratching your head if you start them, and nobody feels good about anything.
So we'll move on then, Rich. Jalen Waddle, ankle sprain, out for potentially up to 4 weeks, but could also return this week. He did return to the game, so is that a good sign? I hope so.
Again, potentially watch and see what happens, isn't it? We saw obviously Dalvin Cook when he did his ankle, he returned to the game, and then that lingered for kind of 3 weeks afterwards, didn't it? So hopefully it's nothing serious, but it's definitely one to be keeping an eye on this week.
Definitely. And then the biggest news of the week, unfortunately, Rich, probably take your earphones out at this point. So we spoke about it a little bit so Zach Wilson left the game for the Jets, potentially 3 to 6 weeks out with a PCL sprain. The backup for the Jets, I don't even know his name, didn't look very good. There you go. Didn't look very good. So the Jets went out and traded for Joe Flacco from the Eagles, sending a 6th round pick that potentially could become a 5th by the looks of it. Getting Joe Flacco back in the building. How do you feel, Rich?
It's just ridiculous, isn't it? If you listen to any Jets fan all off season, they couldn't understand why the Jets didn't bring in some sort of competent backup. They decided that they were going to roll with James Morgan and Mike White as a competition in camp, which was just ridiculous because neither of them should be anywhere near an NFL field. And then, Zach Wilson gets injured, and then it's suddenly panic stations, and we've now had to, quite frankly, overpay for Joe Flacco. Look, when Joe Flacco was there 2 years ago, he looked competent. To be honest, he looked like a better quarterback than Sam Darnold did at the time. So I think it's hopefully shouldn't be too bad for the kind of additional weapons in that Jets offense. I think you can probably, Corey Davis takes a hit, but it wasn't that high anyway. Jameson Crowder probably takes a slight tick up because he had pretty good rapport with Joe Flacco, who was there previously, and Michael Carter probably takes, not much of a knockdown, but probably a slight knockdown. But it's just a case of hopefully Joe Flacco can pick it up quick. He's worked with the LaFleur's and the Shanahan scheme previously, so hopefully he's a quick learn, and we're seeing him start, because if Mike White has got to start another NFL game, it's not going to be pleasant for me to watch him. I think it's essentially torture at this point, isn't
it? So I think the only other big news to go then would be the bye weeks. We've got the Raiders, which we've already spoken about, and the Ravens coming up this week. But I wanted to highlight this as well, Rich, because I know that people will get caught out by it, is daylight savings in the US. So the clocks do go back an hour on Sunday, which means the Thursday night game is at usual time, about 1:20 for us in the UK. But the Sunday games and the Monday game next week, or this week, should I say, are going to be an hour earlier. So they start at 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. UK time. And then roughly a midnight kickoff for Monday Night Football. Just wanted to bring that up because I have been caught out by it in the past, not realizing what week it is. There's always 1 week in the season where the US have a daylight savings roll back a bit earlier than us in the UK. But if you weren't aware, there you go. So
do yourself a favour now. Set yourself an alarm on your phone as you're listening to this for 4 p.m. on Sunday to set your lineups, because you can guarantee that you'll get to like 5 and you'll suddenly think, "Oh, I need to set my lineup," so I go and do it now, and all the games are kicked off. I love this time of year because I love it when the clocks change faster in America than they do over here, and you get that 5 p.m. game, because it means that I can watch all of the second game without having to go to bed. So I do love it, but yeah, it is a headache because me being my OCD self, it throws me out of my process in terms of I sit down and do my lineups, do my rankings, and then go and have dinner. But yeah, hopefully it shouldn't throw things out too much. So the Dynasty stock market, Liam. So we've got some big risers and fallers. So focusing on the risers, this is just a super quick one really, because this stat is absolutely mental. But just wanted to mention Marquise Brown. We've talked about him a couple of times. He is, by the looks of it, having a breakout season. I still think the value hasn't caught up with his production. I still think he's undervalued. But he had 321 air yards on Sunday, which, I mean, normally you talk about a big air yard game being like 150 to 200. For him to have 321 air yards was completely mind-blowing.
Yeah, definitely crazy. I don't really know what else to say on that. The only thing that I have concerns about is what Bateman is going to do in that offense going forward. He's come in and he's looked like he is a big part of that passing offense right now. But 321 air yards is insane.
It's insane, isn't it? So another riser for the week was Michael Pittman Jr. So he's currently the wide receiver 21 in fantasy. He saw a 23.3% target share. Liam, is he the wide receiver 1 to own in Indianapolis in what is now an improving passing attack?
I mean, when T.Y. Hilton came back, we saw him get a lot of targets. Yes, it was for one game. But we've seen that Hilton and Paris Campbell can't stay healthy. And if Pittman does, who else is there to throw? Maybe Zach Pascal, but we didn't really see much of him this week. I think Pittman is the one this year, but I do want to see what happens in future years, because will T.Y. be around next year? Will Campbell be injured again next year? Will the Colts potentially draft another wide receiver or bring one in during the free agency market? Because we all, as we spoke about last week, the free agency market is pretty good next year for wide receiver position. So maybe we see someone brought in to be that one, maybe a Godwin, Allen Robinson. But for this year specifically, Pittman is going to be the one, in my opinion. At future years, I'm struggling to see that carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been the biggest Pittman fan. He's producing far better than I thought he would. I don't expect him to keep up this wide receiver 2 pace. I think he's probably going to fall away, as we said, if Hilton does come back. I think he's probably a hold. I don't think you're going to sell him for anything more than you're not going to get kind of greater than his value at the moment. I think he's probably an early second, late first round pick. I'm not sure anybody's really paying a first for him, let's be honest. But then the other big riser, and I text you in yesterday and said, look, we need to try and shoehorn this guy into the pod because I want to talk about him some more. So it's DeAndre Swift. Look, the guy is incredible. He is an absolute, phenomenally talented player. We've seen him produce in a horrific situation. Everybody was fading him to start the year. Everybody was fading him when he got drafted because of the landing spot. But he's currently the RB2 this year. He is seeing a 20% target share. The only running back that's got a higher target share on the year is Alvin Kamara. Currently my running back 3 in Dynasty. He's consensus running back 6. Do you think, Liam, that RB3 is too low?
I think it's just right for me. I'm interested to see who your running back 2 is, though.
Jonathan Taylor.
Thought so. So I think with Swift, you probably got a tier where it's a lot of interchangeable pieces that you're probably looking at. Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, maybe someone like a Nick Chubb. But you're also looking at like Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry. I think all of those at the moment are anywhere between an RB2 and an RB5, 6 for a lot of dynasty rankers. For me, I think Swift does take that RB3 spot. I don't think he quite takes it from Jonathan Taylor, RB2.
I think that what Swift is doing is underrated. We talk about the likes of Alvin Kamara, Najee Harris, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, what they do in the receiving game, where they're not, okay, maybe Najee Harris is, but they're not, 20 plus carry guys. Yet because of that receiving usage, they're able to do more on less, basically. I've got a couple of stats here. So I've been running some kind of running back production stats. So I'm basically trying to split out rushing and receiving work. DeAndre Swift has scored 93.1 points through receiving. So that's receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. The next highest running back is Alvin Kamara at 73.1. You've then got Najee Harris at 70 points, Austin Eckler at 69.2, Aaron Jones at 68. So he scored 20 more points as a receiver than any other running back in fantasy football. By the way, I'm not counting Cordero Patterson in these stats.
Is he a wide receiver for you?
Well, this is it. He's in the data study, but I'm not counting him because it reinforces my point a little bit more. But this is a guy that, look, he's producing 2/3 of his fantasy points receiving the ball. Yes, the Lions don't have incredible receivers, but to me, that receiving usage is so much more reliable. We've seen even the likes of, Ezekiel Elliott and things like that, where they have weeks where it's difficult to run the ball. The offensive line aren't winning. You go up against the Tampa Bay or something like that. That rushing production isn't as reliable as the receiving production. DeAndre Swift is a phenomenal receiving back. He has got, to me, he is if you were to say Christian McCaffrey has got elite running back potential, both as a receiver and a running back. Okay. The only guys in the tier below him for me are Saquon Barkley and DeAndre Swift, because those two have got that elite rushing and receiving usage and potential. And I don't think that there's another back in the league that is as good a receiver as DeAndre Swift is outside of Christian McCaffrey.
So you have swayed me more to the side that you're reinforcing there. The only concern I have is what you said about the receivers, and you said they don't have incredible receivers. Can we say that they have good receivers, Rich?
No. But
who is receiving the ball there? You've got Hawkinson, who's getting shut down because there's no one else receiving, and then you've got Cephas now on IR, Tyrell Williams now on IR. Now they're not top end receivers anyway, but those are potentially the two top guys that they brought in or drafted. You've got Amon Ross and Brown, who isn't doing great. are we saying that Khalif Raymond is not an incredible receiver? I don't think that's news to anyone.
They've got nobody. They've got
my
nobody. I will
issue.
100% give you that. I will give you that. They've not got any receivers. Okay, but let's go back to Christian McCaffrey. When he was drafted, the Panthers didn't have any good receivers. They were rolling out Kelvin Benjamin and people like that. It's Devin Funchess, wasn't it? They didn't have any good receivers. They then bring in DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson. They're good receivers. DJ Moore is an elite receiver, and yet Christian McCaffrey's still producing as a elite running back, getting opportunity in the receiving game. And I'm saying that is what DeAndre Swift has got. I'm not saying he's Christian McCaffrey, but I'm saying he is the closest to being the next Christian McCaffrey, because put your fingers in your ears if you don't want to hear it, but Christian McCaffrey is not going to be Christian McCaffrey for the next 4 years. Somebody is going to, come in. And I just think that DeAndre Swift, if that offensive line continues to improve, if this offense, because this is the other thing, is that this offense as a whole is terrible. If the offense improves, so do those, trips to the red zone. So do the opportunities to score more touches. He's not going to have to take receptions 60 yards for touchdowns anymore. He's going to get nice little wheel routes in the red zone for, a nice 5-10 yard score. I just think that, to me, DeAndre Swift is a properly elite running back, and I don't think he gets talked about enough.
I do agree with your points. I just don't see him as the next Christian McCaffrey, and that's kind of what you're saying without saying it.
Maybe that was a silly point. Look, nobody's going to be the next Christian McCaffrey. There's a reason why he's got the greatest running back season ever. It's no one's going to get there. But I think DeAndre Swift has got that incredible talent and that incredible usage that not many people can kind of lay claim to the ceiling that he has.
My other concern that I haven't raised yet is, what do we see with Goff next year? Is Goff gone next year? And if so, what are you going to have in place of him? Yeah, are you going to have a rookie quarterback? Because that won't help Swift.
I don't think, to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if the Lions see this as a 3-year rebuild and don't take a quarterback next year, and you see Goff out again. Even just because there's no, you can sit here and I'm sure the college guys will do a much better job talking about the quarterback, but there's no stud quarterback. So maybe the Lions, they sit back and they say, actually, we're going to wait until, 2023 for our quarterback. We're going to take an elite edge rusher out of Oregon. We're going to go and take an offensive lineman or something like that and rebuild in the trenches, which is where we're looking to go. And maybe this offense for another year is built around DeAndre Swift.
I think that a top wide receiver is going to end up there, so maybe that does affect the target share a little bit. But my biggest concern is what they're going to do at quarterback, because if they bring in a rookie, I don't think that helps Swift at all.
Yeah, no, you're probably right, but I think he's too talented to not produce. Basically,
I'm not arguing the talent. I'm going to put that out there before I get absolutely pummeled on Twitter or something. I don't argue with the talent. I think he's great, and that's why I've got him as the RB3. I just worry about the future at the quarterback position because it's going to be so unstable.
Yeah. So our fallers for the week. So the first one is Calvin Ridley again. It feels like we talk about this very often. I don't know what to make about it. All the stats are there. He has got, a decent target share. He's seeing 20% plus. The air yards are there. He basically just needs to catch some balls and catch some touchdowns. But he's had one top 24 week so far this season. Do you think are you expecting a bounce back, or do you think there's more, Julio's gone, there's more weapons, they're using Cordell Patterson, they're using Kyle Pitts, and Kyle Ridley's just sat on the back burner?
I really struggle with him because last year I absolutely loved him. I had him in one of my contending teams and thought that he was going to be brilliant this year. And now I'm looking back thinking maybe I should have moved him for someone plus, but I really struggle with Ridley. I want him to be a thing so badly, and we saw him have that talent. But do we see that with Pitts as the quote-unquote wide receiver 2 there? I don't think Arthur Smith is using him the way that he needs to be used, and that for me makes me struggle to see where this change is going forward.
I'm still a Ridley believer. I think he's still a top 10 Dynasty receiver. I think he's gonna, bounce back. I think he's going to have a fantastic second half of the season. I really do. I really think he's a league winner if you can go and get him. And if the Calvin Ridley owner in your league, I said it a couple of weeks ago, if they're starting to think that he's not that top 10 Dynasty receiver, then I'd happily go and buy him right now. I think he's a great buy low, certainly. And then the other fallers, so these are the rookie quarterbacks. So Justin Fields, we've seen have another horror start, and obviously Zach Wilson, as you said, got injured. People were hyping up. I think Justin Fields was a QB 10, I think, in the offseason at some point. I think Zach Wilson got up to the QB 14 range. Mind blowing that rookie QBs that have never played a snap were being quoted as a QB1. Do you think that they're still elite Dynasty assets? Do you think you can perhaps go and buy low? Do you think it's time to get out before the bottom falls off and they're never going to be anything? Or
I spoke about this in one of my leagues a couple of days ago. I think Fields specifically is going to bounce back and does have that great upside for him. He can run the ball really well. He can pass the ball. We've seen how fast he is. He ran a 4.44 at his pro day. That's still incredibly fast, even if you do add a bit of an adjustment onto it because it was a pro day, not a combine time. But with Fields specifically, I think that he's just in such a bad scheme right now with Nagy that I think when Fields does get a better coordinator, hopefully next year, for Fields specifically, hopefully next year, as a Packers fan, I'm happy with the Bears keeping Nagy for years to come. But with Wilson, what do you think about Wilson, Rich? You watch him every week. I don't get to watch him every week. I hope that he bounces back, but again, this is your area of expertise. You have to watch him every week.
I'm really a believer in Wilson. I think that for me, you don't see every week you see 4 or 5 truly electric throws, and I think that there is probably throws he makes that there's like 4 or 5 guys in the league can make. I think he has got that absolutely properly elite upside. I really, really believe in him. Don't get me wrong. I'm concerned that the offensive line has fallen apart. I'm concerned that what I thought was a decent receiver room at the start of the year hasn't turned into that. Absolutely. I think that for me, he's got the highest variance of any quarterback I've seen in the last probably 3 years. If you told me in 2 years' time, Zach Wilson was a top 5 QB in the league and the Jets were a consistent playoff contender because he was, being considered in that QB1 tier, then I wouldn't be shocked. If you said to me that he'd flamed out and the Jets were entering yet another rebuild with the 5th high drafted quarterback in the last 15 years, I wouldn't be shocked. I think he is literally got every range of outcomes you can believe. I think from a fantasy perspective, that me, I'm always looking to buy low, but I also think that QB is massively overvalued. So if I can get him for a late first, I'm probably happy paying that. But yeah, I'm probably just gonna sit and watch and let others do what they want with him, to be honest.
I think the thing that people are going to forget with Wilson, especially after this week, is the lack of talent on the Jets roster. He's not helped. I mean, are you going to argue with me that they're one of the bottom teams in talent-wise on the roster?
No, I would love to, but I can't.
There's not a whole lot there. I really do hope that the Jets get a bit more talent there. And the other thing that people really forget with the Jets, but seem to remember everywhere else, is Robert Saleh's a first-time head coach. You've also got a first-time OC in Matt. Is it Mike LaFleur? Sorry, not Matt.
Yeah.
So you've got 2 first-year coaches that are high up in the structure at least, and one of them is a defensive coach, which is Salah. So what help does Wilson really have there? I mean, I'm not saying that they're not good because they're first year head coaches, but do we see more improvement as the year goes on because these coaches are getting more acquainted and slowly getting into a routine and a rhythm of figuring out what does actually work in the league? I just hope Wilson gets some more talent around him, because if he doesn't, I really struggle to see the future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So moving on to our stars of the week then, Liam. You've already discussed him. We've already mentioned him. You can wax lyrical about the rookie tie and phenom.
Yeah, so Kyle Pitts is my star of the week. We've got 8 targets for 7 receptions and 163 yards. To me, as a tight end, that is insane, having 163 yards in any game. He didn't score a touchdown, but he didn't need to score a touchdown to be the tight end 2 on the week. To me, that's just incredible, Rich. And if we see this type of usage, do you think that this will become the norm for Pitts? Do you think that he's going to become this elite tight end? This is why I wanted to put him in here, was we haven't really talked about his future since the start of the season, basically, when we both said the price is way too high. We're penciling a rookie tight end to be a tight end 1 going, or a top 3 tight end going forward. Pitts, for me, I think we need to see a little bit more for me to put him there. But as you said earlier, I think put him in the range of Noah Fant, for example, isn't too far-fetched. I think that's exactly where I put him right now.
So I'm on record as saying that having Kyle Pitts as the tight end 2 was absolutely ludicrous. Okay, that was the DLF ADP in September. I was on record as saying it was absolutely obscene. I've moved Kyle Pitts up to my tight end 3 in Dynasty. Look, I think that if we can't expect this every week, I think that this...
I should hope not. It's 163 yards. That's more than some quarterbacks threw for this week.
Yeah, look, that's an absolute ceiling. I think if you're expecting him to put up that sort of stats every week, you're doing yourself a disservice. But look, he's going to be a top 5 tight end this year. And to me, if you've got a rookie that a team has invested as much as they have in him, that's a top 5 producer in year 1, then to me, he's got to be in that top 3 tight end potential. You know, if we saw Najee Harris finishes the season as a top 5 RB, then he's going to be in that, you know, RB2, RB3 conversation at the end of the year. So I think that I'm very much excited and very much interested in him. I think it's where we're going.
Yeah, I think with Pitts, we just need to see it happen a couple more times. Not saying 163 yards a couple more times. I mean, 100-yard games, maybe a touchdown here and there, and being in the top 3 as a tight end scorer. But I think he's well got the route to be there now.
If you weren't a contender this year, Liam, if you're either a middling team that's on the fringe of a playoffs, or if you were in a rebuild, would you take Travis Kelce or Kyle Pitts?
Pitts, unfortunately, Pitts. There wasn't much thought there. Yeah,
there you go, and that's it. You know,
I think some of that does come down to Kelce having, I wouldn't say an off year, but a down year compared to his normal obscene production, and Kyle Pitts having a great couple of weeks. But I think age plays a huge part there. My biggest concern is, does Pitts become the new Ingram and having an amazing rookie year and then not seeing anything else for the rest of his career so far?
Possibly. But I just think that they've invested so much and he's such a talent. You know, I was down on him in the first few weeks because they weren't using him as a wide receiver much. He was being used in line so much. And the last 2 weeks, you've seen him used all over the field. and he's being used as a wide receiver. So to me, that is, the reason he was so hyped by the fantasy and dynasty community was they were saying, well, this is a cheat code because you're getting a wide receiver, but you can play him at tight end. Well, now he is that. We've seen in the last 2 weeks he is that. My star of the week. Now, I always try to avoid the kind of the obvious headline star, and for me, this is a star in terms of a statistical standpoint, and it's T. Higgins. So T. Higgins led the league this week in target share. So he had a 41.7% target share. He saw 15 targets. He had 171 air yards. Okay.
Yeah.
Chase is getting all the headlines, and quite rightly so. He was phenomenal. His game was absolutely mind-blowing. The way he tore apart, one of the better corners in the league in Marlon Humphrey and made him look distinctly average. But T. Higgins is, to me, a sneaky buy low right now, because I think that people are hyped on Chase. People are talking about Chase, and I think people are looking at T. Higgins and going, oh, yeah, he was really good last year, but he's now the wide receiver too. But if this offense, I wouldn't. Do you have any concerns rostering the wide receiver two in Dallas?
No.
That to me
currently is that CD Lamb or is that Cooper? I don't think anyone's having any issues rostering either.
Exactly, and to me, that's the potential that this Bengals offense has, and I think that if you can go and buy T. Higgins low, based on the fact that he's not had that blowout week, I do think it's coming. I think teams are going to start shifting more towards Jamar Chase. NFL teams aren't stupid. When he's catching deep balls for touchdowns every week, you're going to start seeing more safety help over the top. You're going to see that sort of cloud coverage over the top of him. I've got T. Higgins. He's my wide receiver 17, and I think that you can probably get him cheaper than that right now.
Yeah, I think T. Higgins is a great buy right now, especially if that target share carries on. Because as I said, that really surprised me when I looked at the show sheet and you drop that in there. I didn't expect him to have a 40% target share. That's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. So the deep dive player of the week. So look, I suffered through 3 hours of watching the Jets on Sunday. I had to have some sort of silver lining to come from it, and it's Michael Carter. Look, the Jets were woeful. The Jets' offensive line was woeful. We got beaten up all over the field. It was like Big Brother, Little Brother, and the same as it has been for my entire Jets fandom with the Patriots, to be honest. But look, Michael Carter, this is his backfield now. I wanted to talk about Michael Carter on the week that I had to miss because my little one was unwell. But we saw on Sunday it is 72% snap share. He had a 60% opportunity share. To me, I think that Michael Carter is not going to be a fancy starter this year. Okay, I don't think the Jets are ever going to be in a position in terms of where the offense is, where the offensive line is, that he is going to be a top 12, top 24 running back this year. But the thing you've got to remember, the Jets have got 2 first-round picks. They've got the Seahawks pick, which is first-rounder, which is looking particularly nice right now.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a very high first-round pick, a very high second-round pick, and then they've also got the Carolina Panthers second pick. They've got what I think are 2 studs at left guard in Vera Tucker and left tackle in Becton. They've got a competent centre in McGovern. They maybe bring back one of the right tackles in Noah Fant or Morgan Moses. But I'm fully expecting the Jets to draft a lineman high, whether that is a guard or a replacement right tackle, and probably go out and spend some money in free agency. If this offensive line next year, if Becton can stay fit, if Vera Tucker keeps improving like he has done over the last few weeks, this offensive line could be one of the best in the league very quickly. You've then got potentially Zach Wilson coming into a second year. If this offense can take a step forward, which we traditionally see with Shanahan offenses, it's the second year where they make that leap. You saw it with Matt Ryan in Atlanta. You've seen it with Jimmy G in San Francisco. You saw it in
Green Bay.
You saw it in Washington with Kirk Cousins. I think that if this offense takes that step forward, I really believe Michael Carter could be a top 15 back as early as start of next season, and you can probably go and get him right now for what?
Probably paying a second.
A second. He's probably. I mean, he's my RB28, just because I think I don't need to rank him any higher because you don't need to go and pay that value.
Yeah.
But I really like the player. I've been really impressed with him for the Jets in what is, as I said, a lost season, and he offers that elite receiving usage. We saw him in college. We've seen him so far this year. He is a fantastic receiving back, and he is very good in space. And I do think that if this offense steps forward, I think Michael Carter could be a fringe RB1 as early as next year.
Yeah, I've got nothing else to add to that. I think that we won't see another running back added by the Jets unless it is a late round pick.
Definitely.
I think you've got too many holes on the roster as a Jets organization to waste a pick on another running back.
It's turned into Liam pick on the Jets.
Hey, you'd be picking on me for the entire season. This is my revenge.
You're a Packers fan. You've had 30 years of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. There's no picking on you.
And another 10 years of Jordan Love.
Yeah, less said about that, the better.
We'll see.
Yeah. So the spotlight player of the week. So this is a guy that you text me and you really wanted to talk about. So yes. I'll cede the floor to you, Liam. You can away you go.
So the guy is Javonte Williams. I absolutely loved him coming out of college. I had him as my running back 2, and it was less of a teardrop between Najee and Javonte, and it was more of the potentially 1A, 1B role. I loved Javonte coming out purely on his tape. I know that you also had Michael Carter, who we just talked about in that backfield, but I absolutely loved Javonte coming out. This week, he had a 50% opportunity share, and he just looked so much better than Gordon. Like, I don't know how else to put it. I'm talking from a film point of view. You're going to come in with all the stats in a minute. There'll be some crazy stat that I've never heard of before. But from a film point of view, he's just one of those players that has the it factor for me. And when I say that, for those that don't watch film, is you can just feel it when they play, that whatever they do you get excited about, or you think, oh wow, that was better than I expected them to do. I think with Javonte, we're only going to see the value rise from now on. Gordon isn't around next year unless they bring him back, which I doubt they will, with how well Javonte has been doing in a 50% opportunity share. I just think the sky is the limit for Javonte. Running back 1 next year, maybe.
That's some high hope. This backfield is just completely mental. I have never seen, every single week when I open up the stats and go and look at it, it's like a 50% split exactly. And I've never seen a backfield like it. Normally when it's a timeshare, it'll be like one back will have like 60%, one will have 40%, and then the following week it might change or whatever. They are literally 50% on the dot every single week. And it's like, right, Javonte's going to get more receiving work, but Melvin Gordon will have the rushes. And then it'll flip the following week. It's mind-blowing, but it's very interesting to watch. And I've got Javonte in my main home league. I've really keen to dive into him. I think that he could be fantastic, and I'm very excited about what his potential could be. I think I'm probably not as high on him as you. I am excited on him for the rest of the year. Like, the Broncos have got a fantastic stretch down the end of the season. They've got a fantastic stretch down the playoffs. So I'm very excited about that.
I think with Javonte, just for the listeners to know how high I am on him, I turned down a offer in one quarterback league, which were 2 firsts next year. And then it turned into 1 first this year, 1 first next year, and I still turned that down as well. I do think Javonte is going to become one of the best backs in the league, one of the top 12 backs fantasy-wise anyway. He just has that it factor for me, and that's what I want in a guy that I roster at least.
Fantastic. Have we got a listener question?
Yes, so we have 2 from Fazian in the in the YouTube chat, he has been commenting as we've gone along. So Faison, sorry we haven't got around to them as we've gone along. Just going back to our discussion on Pitts and the tight end position, he asked, how do we value Pitts over Waller currently? What do you think about that, Rich?
So for me, I've still got Waller ahead of Pitts. They're in the same tier. They're very close. I just think if Waller comes back fully fit from the bye, we could see him basically be a league winner. And I think that his ceiling in the short term is higher than Pitts. So that's why I've still got him higher than Pitts in the dynasty sphere at the moment.
I think for me, they're very similar. And it really depends on how you're looking at your roster, whether you're looking at winning in a couple of years or whether you're winning now. And that really depends on what the rest of your roster looks like. But if you listen to the podcast enough, you know that tight end is the last position that I ever address. And then his other question was around a trade that he's received. So what do you think about this, Rich? He's getting Aaron Jones, Leonard Fournette, and Darren Waller, but giving up Derrick Henry and Zach Ertz in a standard league. So I'm assuming one quarterback, probably no PPR.
Yeah, I'm presuming that's probably redraft. If that's redraft, then yeah, I'm probably taking that, to be honest. I think if I can get, unless I've got a solid RB2, if I'm getting Aaron Jones and Leonard Fournette for Derrick Henry, and I'm getting the upgrade from Zach Ertz to Darren Waller, I'm probably taking that. In Dynasty, that's an absolute smash for me. I've got Aaron Jones ahead of Derrick Henry in Dynasty. So again, if I'm getting an upgrade across the board, I'm smashing that in Dynasty circles.
Yeah, I think with Fournette, people don't realise how good he's actually been this year, especially with Ronald Jones not getting the opportunities. So again, I'm with Rich and I'm taking that in both Dynasty and Redraft.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for another great pod. Thank you for joining us if you've joined the live stream. Don't forget, you can check out Manscaped. Use the code 5yard for 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Also, a little solo plug. I actually launched my Patreon site this week. I'll be honest, I've been completely bowled over by the response. I've already got 15 patrons signed up. We've been having some fantastic chats. I've been producing some interesting content, some interesting graphs and things. So if you like my work, by all means, drop me a DM. I can happily send you a link, or it is also my pin tweet on Twitter. Liam, where can the people find you?
As usual, at the FSA tweets, or just head over to the @5yard Dynasty account, and you'll see both myself and Rich in the description or in the bio, and you'll see our other writers, Danny and Lewis, in there as well, to give them a follow. We are not many followers away, Rich. Last time I checked, which was a couple of days ago, we were only 5 followers away from 1,000 on that account, and I know we've got something planned for when we hit that.
Yes, absolutely. If you're not following, go along and follow. As Liam says, we've got a nice little giveaway planned once we hit 1,000. So make sure you're following by the time we get there. I am at Dynasty Islands. If you are celebrating, have a happy Halloween, and we will see you all again next week.